Hi guys, welcome back to Welding with Mr. Sapanic. Today's lesson is going to be the use of a 1/8 inch 6010 electrode, and this is going to be a fillet weld in the flat position. Now the material I have here is just some scrap material that I cut in half, so our thickness is actually going to range from about 3/8 of an inch to close to an inch or so. But for demonstration purposes, we'll be throwing a couple of welds on here. So the thickness we'll go for today is going to be about 1/2 of an inch. My machine is set up on direct current electrode positive. I am running on about 82 amps right now, and we are going to be making this fillet weld here. A couple of things before we get started with this 6010 electrode. 6010 is a deep penetrating electrode. 6010 also has a very thin slag coating on it. So unlike your 7018 or your 6013 electrodes, you don't even need, I barely use a chipping hammer when I'm running with 6010. What I will actually do is I will take my electrode out of the stinger, and I will actually use the back side and scrape the scale off with that. There's a couple of different manipulation techniques, and we'll talk about that in a separate video. But for today, I'm going to run a whipping motion for my root pass, and then I'm going to move on to a circular motion for my fill passes or hot pass. So let's show you how that works. So when I run with my 6010, I also like to use two hands on it. So rather than being up here like this, in order to have a consistent whipping technique or whipping motion, I like to use two fingers on it. Now, the only thing you have to watch out when doing this, I'm not grabbing it and squeezing it. I am just simply using my fingers as a guide, because this rod does heat up. When you start at the edge of your material with your 6010 rod, you want to, it takes a second to heat this rod up. So when you start, you want to long arc about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch away from the material to allow that rod to heat up before you actually drop that into the pipe. If you don't do that, the beginning 1/4 to 1/2 inch of your weld is going to just be sitting on top of your material. It's not actually going to be penetrating into your base material itself. So let's show you that with this. Okay, now with 6010, when you are running your pass through here, there's going to be sometimes that arc is going to bounce, okay? And what I mean by that is I have my two pieces of material right here, so my arc might want to go onto this material, even though my rod is directly in the center. So in that instance, if my arc is coming to this side here, I'm going to angle to try and push that arc back to the center or to the other side. Once it moves, then I can straighten my angle back up. So with 6010, you have to do a little bit of movement, a little bit more movement rather than a 7018. So you guys can see here how easy this slag is removed. Just by scraping it, and pushing on it a little bit, this slag comes right off. Okay? All right, so here's our root pass. Now 6010 is not gonna look like a 7018 rod, okay? It's a deep penetrating, fast freezing electrode. So every time you pull that rod out of the puddle, it's going to freeze up. You can weld this on dirty material, you can weld this on painted material. This is why 6010 is one of my favorite rods, because it doesn't matter what's there, it's gonna weld through it. Now we're gonna go ahead and throw 2 passes over here just to use them as fill passes. Now I'm gonna go to a circular motion rather than the whipping motion. This is just a personal preference. With 6010, you gotta make sure you have the right rod angle though. If you're straight up and down, you're gonna get tons and tons of undercut on the top edge of that weld. Now same thing, let it cool down for just a second. We're gonna take the back of our electrode, just gonna scrape it right along that material. Here's our second pass, which is our first of our hot pass here, or our fill pass, whichever you want to call it. Now what we'll do, we'll go through and we're going to lay a weld right in here, right in this low spot. Now we're going to adjust our angle back the opposite way, tying in that previous weld to our new piece. We'll start with the new rod, that way we can finish the whole weld. Now this is a 2-pass fill right here. And remember, the more you weld, the better you're gonna get. That's why this is about 3 inches big here. You're going to get better at 60-10 welding, the more 60-10 welding you do, okay? Now typically 60-10, like I said, is used on dirty materials, rusted materials, painted materials. But 60-10 is also used good as the initial weld on base material. It's on its strongest 70-18, but it gives a good penetration into that base material, especially on that root pass, to allow for your material to stick together. If you follow these couple of things with 6010, 6010 is my favorite rod, you will do okay with it. There's a lot of people that hate 6010 because of the excess spatter. As long as you keep practicing with it and you're doing what it is that you're supposed to do, 6010 can be a very, very good rod for you. One additional thing, when you're running with 6010, 7018, you're going to keep about 1/8 of an inch arc length on your rod. When you're using 6010, you want to be just a little bit closer, and that's going to prevent a little bit of that excess spatter. That's all for today.